Joining us now to analyze today's headlines is Robert Jensen. He's an author and a professor of journalism at the University of Texas at Austin. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Sonali.
Hundreds of people are missing and feared dead after a boat sank in China's Yangtze River last night. The boat was carrying more than 450 people. 5 have been confirmed dead so far, but that number is very likely going to rise. The boat was apparently caught in a cyclone, and Chinese media reported that there were winds of 40 miles per hour. Hundreds of rescue workers have been deployed, but ongoing fog and rain has hampered efforts. Meanwhile, in Bonn, Germany, climate representatives from a number of countries are meeting this week to edit an agreement to curb greenhouse gas emissions in preparation for this December's UN talks in Paris. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius made waves when he stated that any plan agreed upon should not hinge on approval by the U.S. Congress. He said, quote, "We know the politics in the U.S., whether we like it or not. If it comes to the Congress, they will refuse." Well, Bob, first, should we consider China's boat disaster a byproduct of our changing climate? And second, should we be ashamed as Americans at the French Foreign Minister's quite realistic statements?
Yeah, well, of course, any weather event is connected to the larger climate system. And we repeat over and over again, climate change doesn't mean we can predict these kinds of events. It means that these events will be more intense and more unpredictable, and this is just another example of that. What is predictable, of course, is the insanity of the U.S. Congress, and the French official is quite correct that climate change denial is now so deeply connected to ideology, both free market ideology and the particular Republican Party ideology, that we can assume no rational behavior on the part of Congress on anything related to climate change right now.
And a new investigative report by AP has unearthed a bombshell about government surveillance. The news organization has found that, quote, the FBI is operating a small air force with scores of low-flying planes across the country carrying video and, at times, cell phones surveillance technology, all hidden behind fictitious companies that are fronts for the government. For years, reports of suspicious-looking planes flying over neighborhoods fueled fears of government surveillance, including during recent protests in Baltimore, Maryland, after the police custody death of Freddie Gray. This new report confirms those fears. The FBI is apparently cooperating with local police departments to share information. The report was released as a debate rages in Congress over provisions of the USA Patriot Act and the right of the government to spy on Americans. Bob, this report sounded like Orwellian-inspired fiction to me. What do you make of it?
Well, it's extremely disturbing for a couple of reasons. One, obviously, the technology. As more technological advances are made in the ability to surveil and control people, we should assume that law enforcement and military will use it. There's no reason not to, and that's disturbing, of course. The cooperation between federal officials, state and local officials is also disturbing. It's one thing for the FBI, the political police of the country, to do this. We've known this is going on for a long time. It's more disturbing, I think, when it infiltrates down to the local level. What was most striking about this story is that the FBI is using these shell companies, and when it asked the Associated Press not to reveal the names of those companies, one of the reasons it said is because if you do, we'll just have to set up new ones. The brazen quality of this was really striking. This was a frightening story, no doubt.
And later in our program, we will be covering more of the debate over the Patriot Act, as well as speaking with Frederick A.O. Schwartz about his book, Democracy in the Dark. And finally, 3 new election-related polls were released today. A Washington Post/ABC News poll has found that the 2016 field of GOP presidential candidates is so crowded that no clear frontrunner has emerged, and that the presumptive Democratic nominee, Hillary Clinton, suffers from a problem of, quote, trustworthiness. A CNN ORC survey found similar results for Clinton, with 50% of those polled saying that she does not inspire confidence. And a New York Times CBS poll examining arguably the most important election-related issue of campaign finance found that regardless of party affiliation, ordinary people overwhelmingly reject the Supreme Court's notion that money is speech. There is strong public support to overturn the court's disastrous Citizens United decision that has enabled billionaires to have unprecedented influence over elections. Sadly, there is little faith that elected officials who are beholden to the system will work to change it. Bob, as a journalism professor, what do you take away from these 3 polls just released today?
Well, I think it's important to recognize that campaign finance reform is always important and, in a sense, always a failed project. As we pass one set of measures, we found in the past that concentrated wealth finds its way around those. So campaign finance reform laws themselves are not the issue, I think. They're a good thing to pursue, but they aren't going to solve the problem, because the problem is concentrated wealth. If wealth were distributed around the country fairly equally, then money in politics wouldn't be a problem. I think it's always important to tie campaign finance abuses with the inherent abuse in democracy that comes with concentrated wealth. That's the problem, and that's where we need to keep our focus.
Robert Jensen, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Sonali.
Robert Jensen is an author and a professor of journalism at the University of Texas at Austin. This is Uprising, and by the way, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/uprising with Sonali. Your subscription not only sustains the TV production of Uprising, but it also enables you exclusive access to all our videos online without any fundraising pitches. We'll be right back.